Saludos y bienvenido a la Superb Diamond Range. Greetings and welcome to the Superb Diamond Range show. Today's date's the 18th of January 2015, and this is the first podcast of 2015. We're very excited to have a brilliant guest in Randy from Bitcoin Venezuela. Let me first start by asking you how you're doing, Randy, today.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm fine, right? Currently, it's a really good time to start talking about Bitcoin this first year, in the first day of the year.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about Bitcoin. I've always been very interested in it. Never actually got any further than just a little bit of research, and I'd imagine, like most of our listeners, there might be people that still don't know too much about it, but are curious and interested in it. I'd like to firstly ask you to tell us a bit about yourself, and of course Bitcoin Venezuela as well.
Well, my name is Randy Brito. I live in Spain, but I'm Venezuelan. I've been here for a long time. I manage the website bitcoinvenezuela.com and the Facebook group with over 2,000 Bitcoin users that are Venezuelans. Most of them are active doing trading, and I started studying Bitcoin in from April 2012. I started really actively working with Bitcoin, and I decided to give information to people in Venezuela from a trusted site. Then I created that website community group.
Brilliant. And I just would like you to try your best to kind of explain, especially to the beginner or somebody that might not be too technical, what exactly is Bitcoin and how
Well,
does it work?
Bitcoin is primarily three things. The first thing that it is a protocol with rules that have to be you have to follow those rules to use it. These rules lets you use the Bitcoin, but only following the rules. Someone that is not following any of the rule will get easily kicked out of the network, because you have to be a good user, because that is more profitable to be a good one than rather to trying to fake the system itself. The rules try in any way to keep a good state of the network. Okay,
Okay.
so it is primarily those rules of the protocol. Then Bitcoin is also a network of computers like the internet, that is a huge number of computers that are interconnected in Bitcoin. Those computers carries the database that is called the blockchain, and every one of the nodes or the computers that are connected in the Bitcoin network have the same copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. So you can verify that a transaction has happened and has been verified, because every one of the users and every one of the nodes have a copy of it. So you can assert that you are sure that you have the correct blockchain, and you can know at any time that a transaction has happened or haven't happened. And the other last thing that Bitcoin could be named is a currency or a digital money system, digital cash system. Cash, because it is not attached to any name. It is more like cash, like the coins that you have in your pocket.
Okay.
Um, so you can send Bitcoin to anyone that is connected to the internet. There are even ways that you can use Bitcoin without the internet. So anyone that is connected to the internet and connected to the Bitcoin network can receive Bitcoin from you, and he can send Bitcoins anywhere in the world, with a
Brilliant.
low fee or even for free.
That is amazing. And obviously, how did you first sort of get involved and start using Bitcoin, and what was the reason why you started?
Well, I knew about Bitcoin in April 2011, and I started using it, mining in a iMac and in a personal computer. After that, the Bitcoin difficulty was supposed to go to the space or something like that, because people started using graphic cards to to mine. Mine is the process to create Bitcoin. So the
Okay.
Bitcoins unit, the money is issued by mining or processing transaction, and people are paid for processing transaction, and that's the way that the money is issued. That the currency is issued that way. After all the really how all the development in the Bitcoin mining, I stopped using Bitcoin and started learning about the fundamentals and the economics part of it in April 2012. Um, I started to see this information about the control inflation, because Bitcoin has a controlled inflation.
Okay.
You know how many Bitcoin will be created, or you can calculate the number of Bitcoin that will be created in the next month, and the next 100 years, because
Wow.
it is set by mathematics, the rules that are in the protocol. So I saw in that part of the Bitcoin protocol a really good way to help Venezuelan people. I in 2012 I started following people who talk more about the economic part of Bitcoin. Um, I could realize that that is the only way to help. For example, in places like Venezuela, that corruption is everywhere, that the currency is controlled by the government and is issued at their will, and they can the the inflation is out of control and things like that. So
Definitely.
Bitcoin is the clearly it's the only way to help, where no one wants to help, that in officially help, or governments are really willing to help people, right?
Yeah, it's like there's no alternative. Like the government isn't going to fix it, so you've got to look at alternative options, and obviously coming from, say, Venezuela, where I mean, last time I checked, the current economical situation in Venezuela, they had the annual inflation rate had risen to 63%, the highest in Latin America. And I mean, obviously, situations like the food store shelves are practically empty. You can't find the basics. Obviously, as people talk about no toilet paper, but obviously, in UK and US, we take for granted things like toilet paper. But when you can't even get that, and I mean, it's so expensive to buy bread and milk. And I mean, I mean, Venezuela is like the third largest oil supply in the world. Like, how could they be in trouble? It's just hard to believe.
It's hard to believe, because we are from, or we live in places that, as you said, we are used to the government working not that well, but they work, and we have insurance, and we have bank accounts that cannot be touched by anyone. Well, anyone, the banks can touch it, and the governments too, but we are used to that not happening. When you live in places like Venezuela and other places in Latin America, like Honduras or Haiti right now, uh, the, the the situation there is more like don't you are not confident with the way the government works, how the law is really, how people get into the the justice is completely you ignored, and you cannot get anything from granted. You live every day for just for that day. People usually are into a lot of problems, so they forget all the other things that are around, like a huge step in the technology like Bitcoin, or a huge uh, privacy leak on somewhere else in huge companies like Sony or anything like that. They are into many problems that those things that they get them ignored. They don't even know that happened. Um, Currently, there is a lot of shortage because there are not enough US dollars for the government to import like the 97% of groceries are imported. So you
Okay.
cannot they are not producing anything that the people needs, and the government have to import everything. The government is doing the importation themselves because there is a money control imposed since 2004. So merchant cannot import the things they usually import to sell. They even if they can import products, they cannot sell the product at the price they want, so they cannot make any profit.
Oh wow.
Um, so Bitcoin is a good way to not go against the government, like trying to crush all the rules they set,
Of
but
course.
trying
Yeah.
to get ways around the problems. If you need to import something and you don't get the US dollars from the government for your believers to import something, you just try to get bitcoins in other place and import the things like contraband or something like that, and pay in bitcoins, and you get the things, and you can sell the things for a profit because you avoided the government in some way, so you can avoid some cost too. Most of the costs are paying corrupt and corruption. So you can avoid a lot of things, even though you are paying a high premium for the Bitcoin, you can make a profit for it. So is Bitcoin is a way not to it is sometimes described like a way to destroy the government or end the state, but it's not really that the idea of Bitcoin. The idea of Bitcoin is to be an alternative that didn't exist before. Now it is an alternative that you can use for the things that you were not allowed to do before. This is a tool that you have to use for the things that you were prohibited to be able to do before, or something like that. So in the situation in Venezuela right now, for example, if it is the third or fourth producer of oil in the world, but 90% of the oil it produce is used to pay how do you say grants, no, mortgage or something. How do you say that?
Yeah. Mortgages.
Well,
Loans.
loans from China and Russia, loans from other countries that Iran,
Cuba maybe
Cuba.
or yeah.
Well, Cuba didn't give any loan to Venezuela. They just are Cuba, so they just give it away to them. They
Give it
they
away for
give
free.
yeah they give away some oil for Cuba, so Cuba can sell the oil like it is its own, and can make a profit in US dollars.
Wow.
And with those US dollars they can get into the status they are right now. They can even talk with the USA like they are a profitable country. You come here and make your investments. The only profits that Cuba makes are from the giveaway of Venezuela giving oil for free for them to sell to other Iceland and other countries in the Caribbean.
Wow.
So that doesn't make sense in any way. So Venezuela is not producing anything. It is importing everything. It doesn't have U.S. dollars. The reserve of U.S. dollars of the country of Venezuela is the same as the price Facebook paid for WhatsApp. So
Wow.
it is not really a stable country. So Bitcoin could make like a huge step into the idea of libertarian in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin world, that Bitcoin could be the answer for all these problems.
Okay.
It is like a test place. Bitcoin in Venezuela is like the playground where you try everything, and if it works there, it have to work anywhere.
Yeah, because it sounds to me like, for the Venezuelans now, they've been turning to Bitcoin to kind of bypass, the socialist currency controls that were introduced by Hugo Chavez like well over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Because I know like things like when they want to travel outside of Venezuela, there's like rules as to how much money they can bring outside, and there's not like the options that you'd have in other parts of the world where you could go from one place to the other to exchange currency. There's a lot of controls there, like you can only bring so much and you have to go through a particular institution. Maybe you could expand on that about things like traveling from Venezuela and how strict things are in general.
Yes. Currently, you have to go personally to institutions to ask for a quota that is renewed every year. Right now, it's like 2,000, 2,500 US dollar per year for traveling, $300 per year for pay online or buying online. Um, if you don't travel that year, you cannot get the $2,500. You you just have the $300 per year quota. You can use that $300 to very less things. So you cannot buy things on Amazon because you have to get the things carry around in some companies for transportation to get into Venezuela because Amazon doesn't ship to Venezuela. So you get like 300 of nothing, but
Wow.
people can get those 300 US dollar and turn them into Bitcoin, store the Bitcoin or sell the Bitcoin in Venezuela, because one of the things you cannot do and you are not allowed to do is get those uh, 300 US dollar at 50 bolivars per US dollar, bring it back and sell it in the real market price that is over 180 bolivars per US dollar. That is that is not allowed to do. So you can get bitcoins at 300 US dollar at 50 bolivars per US dollar and sell bitcoins at the current market price, and make a profit for that. That's mostly what people are really doing into in the Bitcoin scene in Venezuela. There's even Bitcoin is only one of the things that people are using, or one of the tools that people are using to do that, because people usually do that. They've been doing that for 10 years now. They know all the things they can do, all the things they cannot do to get caught. So uh, there are even stories of people that travel like 58 hours in around the world just to get all the dollars that you get for traveling, and then
Wow.
go back to the country and sell all those US dollar in the black market for a huge profit.
Wow.
So
Gosh.
and that's the kind of thing that we are not uh, used to see, but that's the everyday for Venezuelans. Bitcoin, what is given to people that's really a small community of Bitcoin users, mostly of all of the Bitcoin users that are right now in Venezuela are traders, so they just buy and sell Bitcoins. They 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 try to buy the Bitcoins with US dollars that are cheap US dollar, sold by the government, then sell those Bitcoin at the market price that is, 4 or 5 times the price in the regular way. So, Bitcoin, in in the scene of the Bitcoin mining in Venezuela, as you cannot import things because you don't have US dollars, Bitcoin mining the is not as common as it could be in the US, that you can go, to an online store and buy a miner in Amazon or Overstock, whatever, and other places.
Okay.
Even here we can buy some in Europe in eBay. In eBay we can buy something, or we can directly buy to the miner, creators, and they ship to your home. In Venezuela, the mining process is only for people that have enough money to get a huge number of mining equipment, have the enough contacts to install all those Bitcoin miners, with enough capacity and electricity power to run them, really the lowest cost of electricity in in the world. You can pay, half a cent for each kilowatt per hour.
Wow, that's
So
really, yeah.
that, if you get the power, right? If you don't have the contacts to get that power, you won't be able to even run a bulb or a light bulb. So, you see, yeah, there are like 8 hours of electricity cuts in every day in the country, all over the country. So unless you have enough contacts to connect directly to the power station, you are not going anywhere with the mining operations there. That's one of the things we know really, in deep, because we try to do that. And how is the things going there for Bitcoin somewhere, near the future is, we need Bitcoin users, not Bitcoin miners or merchants accepting Bitcoin. We need Bitcoin user. We need like 10,000 people using Bitcoin as a currency, paying to each other, not trading with it. Must like using Bitcoin to acquire products that are lacking, or that have shortage in the country. We need the users in Venezuela to use the Bitcoin as a currency, because that's the only way people will get the real idea of Bitcoin in Venezuela, and that's the only way to jump over the craziness of the currency there, that could even lose 1,000 or 7,000, like a few months ago, 7,000 of worth in one night.
If you were to say who you think is most likely to be blamed for the, the problems with the economy in Venezuela, where do you feel that the problem began, and why do you think it's happened, and why hasn't it improved, or is it not supposed to improve? What are your thoughts on that?
On the economic problems, you mean?
Yes, the economic problem in Venezuela with
No,
the inflation.
the economic problems in Venezuela are not going anywhere unless the government wants to. But the government is taking advantage of it, is making profit out of it. All the the state, um, people that are in working for the state or working for the government in some way, in any way, they are making profit out of it. So they don't want the economic crisis to go anywhere, unless you are part of the people in power and really want to make a change. it is not going to change anytime soon. The only thing that could make really change the situation in Venezuela is that, like right now, crashing the crash of the oil price,
Okay.
or the intervention of another country, or finally punishing the the behavior of the people in power in
Of
Venezuela.
course, of
There
course. Yeah, I
there are,
agree. Yeah.
there are like every day 100 news about ships fill up of cocaine going out from Venezuela, and
Wow.
no one stopping them.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
most most of the high power in the military, they get paid to leave, to let those ships go through out of Venezuela with all that cocaine.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it's not going anywhere. The crisis is helping all those people to stay in power. If the crisis stops, all of them will lose money. There are there Everyone is corrupt in Venezuela. Even if you live there, or myself, if I live there, I would be corrupt in some way. I will not pay taxes, or
I don't
I will
blame you.
cross
Yeah.
I will cross the street in the red light, because I don't want to get uh, shot in a light traffic stop or anything, right?
Of
So
course. Yeah.
is the situation can only be changed through education that has been for 16 years now being destroyed by this mind control education
It's sort of dumbing
that
down of the Venezuelan people, kind of, would you
yeah
say? Like, yeah. So it's not, it's like when there was a vote election for, I believe it was Chavez for the third time. It seemed like people didn't know what to do. They were so dumbed down that they couldn't imagine life without living under that government. So whether you believe it or not, if it was a legitimate vote, it seemed like a lot of people were so comfortable, thought that they don't want things to change because obviously they were scared that they might the new guy might not look after them, might only care for the
yes,
rich, and
that's part of the vote. But there are people that they 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 give up in life or something. They were saved by Chavez. There were people that needed Chavez to make money, and so they helped him. There are also most of the population that now they've been educated to love the government, how
of
it is
course, yeah,
corrupt to the bones, and um, the only way to change that mentality is crushing all the ideas into the floor with with
exactly,
with a
exactly.
huge crisis that they cannot handle. So they will see that the government is not a savior, that you don't need a savior to live. You only need a job, a real job where you get your money, and you get paid, and you can eat, and you can go to home uh, securely, safely, without running for your life. So
Because I also heard
this,
that, like in Venezuela, that in the schools, that whenever they have their milk in the afternoon or in the morning, that they used to pray to like God. They just close their eyes and pray to God that the milk would arrive, and now they're apparently they're praying to Chavez for the milk.
yeah,
You know,
they pray to God. Their God is Chavez right now.
Chavez. Yeah,
So
exactly.
if 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 you teach people for 15 or 16 years that your savior is your president, and that he is like you, he is one from the streets, that's all a lie. But they trust, they believe on that because they want to believe. 90% of the people in Venezuela are believers are even they are Catholics. So um, they have to believe in something, and right now they don't have anything to believe. Um, one call from Venezuela from yesterday. Um, Almost 80 years old person. I have to tell you that she cannot light a candle for his dead mom because there are no candles in the country.
Oh, wow.
So imagine someone that is telling that to you, and you live in Spain that is supposed to be a developed country where you have anything you need if you go outside with money in hand. So in in that situation, the only way to change the real crisis that is a mentality crisis that people have in their veins. They've been taught to behave that way, to be into the stupidity or something. So Bitcoin, the good thing that have and I'm I try to teach the Bitcoin ideas without talking about the technical part of it unless people ask me for it.
Sure.
So we in the south of Spain we have our group that is mostly educational foundation, and we make talks and conferences and things like that. And
Brilliant.
the part of Bitcoin that is really interesting is that if you find the idea in Bitcoin that you find interesting, you will continue yourself teaching yourself about Bitcoin. And the good thing is that if you try to learn about Bitcoin, you are not learning like internet connections and IPs and computers. No, you are learning about economics. You are learning about how money is supposed to be, how the sound money is supposed to be. When we left the goal uh, behind, we when the countries started printing money out of thin air, you start learning things from Edward Snowden, things from uh, when WikiLeaks started accepting Bitcoin. Why did he started accepting Bitcoin? Why PayPal is a tool that could be controlled by governments, or the most incredible example right now is EgoPay, that is a competitor for PayPal. It
Okay.
it used to accept Bitcoin. It shut down itself a few hours ago. So that is the kind of services where we put our money that is not really money, it is just paper, and
Of
we
course.
just and we put all our effort to earn that money, and we can lose it in no time, because in Bitcoin we can carry our private keys on ourselves. For example, there is a Bitcoin wallet that gives you 12 words in a list of 12 words in English that you can learn in, and you don't even have to write it down in a paper. And you can carry all your Bitcoins in your head, in your mind, and you will never lose it.
Brilliant.
Um,
Secure.
so yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's pretty cool because you only have to remember those words, or write it down in paper, mm, because paper is not in the computer and the computer is insecure itself. So it's really how money should be, how you earn your money, and you are the only one in power of it. You don't leave it in paper, or you don't leave it in PayPal, or you don't leave it in EgoPay and lose it in no time just because it's shut down, or it was uh, seized by the FBI or things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So is Bitcoin safe? If you learn about it, you will find a way to be safe. If you don't want to learn, if you only want to use it and leave your Bitcoins in a Bitcoin service in a third party, you are not doing anything good, because Bitcoin is about not trusting a third party. You have to trust yourself. in that part, and you have to learn not to lose your own money.
Um, okay, so if you were trying to convince somebody that you met for the first time about Bitcoin, and you told them that obviously it's a great alternative to say the Venezuelan Bolivar Fuerte, the US dollar, the UK pound, what reasons would you give it for being a better alternative to the fiat currencies that we have around the world at the moment? Why do you feel like Bitcoin is much better?
Bitcoin is one alternative to the money we know right now, and just like we don't have people don't have all their money in one place. People don't spend all their money in their house, or they don't have all their money in the bank account. People usually have a safe in their house, um, or they have it invested in stocks or things like that. Just like you do with the regular money, you will have to learn that Bitcoin is not 100% secure, but is an alternative where you can put some of your savings, so you can be sure that part of the economic situation could go to really bad course, or or even banks could seize your money, but you have the security that you can carry part of your money on yourself. Imagine that the euro fails, and we don't have euro anymore. All our money will worth nothing. But if you have an alternative currency, if you have gold, you have Bitcoin, and you think that the situation right now will make things change, you should be already trying to spread your wealth, not only in the fiat currency, in the UK pound or US dollars. You should be already learning the situation in the world is changing right now. The technology is the future in some way or another. Bitcoin is part of the technology in some way. Bitcoin is only one of the part of the Bitcoin is the currency. So it might not be the future currency that everyone will use, but it might be one of them. Um, if people wants to be some way into the protected into the future, they need to learn about Bitcoin, even if they don't invest on it, or if even if they don't accept Bitcoin, they need to learn about Bitcoin, the technology, the blockchain, how 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 the technology works. It's not like before that we could. I don't want to be on Facebook because I don't want people to see my pictures. Is This is a technology that you have to get into it before anyone else, because that way you can teach yourself how the things will work in the future. For example, there is a stock exchange that will be written in a technology that is based on Bitcoin, that will try to be the alternative for the New York Stock Exchange. There, there are already IBM working on an Internet of Things that will work over a blockchain, or the technology of the blockchain.
Right.
There are other situations like Ecuador trying to imitate the electronic money. They will try to the how I say that, to change the current fiat paper money to electronic fiat money.
Okay.
So everything will be electronic in some way. um, Bitcoin has the ability to be um, out of the control of the government,
Sure, which is
i-
great.
i- which is, if you feel comfortable with it, it's a good reason to get into Bitcoin. But if you don't feel comfortable with it, you can even use it because you are not forced to use it like with fiat.
Of
You are not
course, yeah, it's an
forced to
option.
accept Bitcoin. It's an option, it's an alternative, and you are free to use it, or you are free just to use it like
That's
just
great. It's
like
not
a
forced on
bridge,
us, which is
like
great,
a
you know.
bridge.
Um,
You can start accepting Bitcoin just to at the end get fiat if you want.
Definitely. I mean, I visited Panama one time, and I remember hearing that they have a famous saying there that, you know, when you're in a supermarket, you know, if you see something you like and you really want it, you know, buy it, because if you don't, it might not be there tomorrow. And
Yes.
obviously that'll be the same for Venezuela now. If you see something you really like and need, you're gonna want it. And it kind of brings back to what you were saying about the currencies that are out in existence at the moment, like the euro, the US dollar, the UK pound, and the fact that, you know, at any moment they could just go away or crash. And you know, in the UK there was a situation with Northern Rock Bank where, you know, they, you know, went bankrupt, and everybody was racing to, you know, withdraw their savings from outside the bank.
Hmm.
So you know, there is definitely a lot of fear out there. And I mean, some people, you know, take it for granted, think, oh, you know, my bank's going to be fine, you know, you know, the government will just print more money, or you
Too
know,
big
we'll
to
be
fail.
fine. But it's not the way forward, really. It'd be better to look for something different.
Yeah.
I would like to say, about things like buying things with Bitcoin. You know, can you give us examples of kind of what you can buy and where you can buy it, and you know, if there's any restrictions or rules on that?
The restrictions or rules, made by the government, for example, when buying or selling a product or buying or selling a currency, can be different for every country. So that is out of my knowledge, because in Spain it doesn't. It is a payment manner, but in the UK it is more like, how you say it, well, it is regulated like in the US. um, you can buy Bitcoin right now, or you can earn Bitcoin too. So, for example, in the UK, you can buy Bitcoin by connecting your UK account to an exchange like Coinbase, or you can make a wire transfer or euro transfer to Bitstamp, or or you can even find an individual in the streets or through the internet on local Bitcoins to make a direct exchange. So someone pays you in Bitcoin and you send pounds or euros to their bank accounts. There is even ways now that you can go to a ATM or Bitcoin ATM where you put your
Wow,
paper
it's
with your
really good.
paper. Yes, in the UK there is even one ATM, I think, in the Google Bootcamp or Google co-working place or something like, working place or something. So I hope it is there, because I'm going to there in 1 month or something. So
Brilliant.
I,
That's
I,
good.
I, I, I was looking for it in the internet, but it's really easy to find in the big cities someone that is willing to change some Bitcoin for paper money if you need it. In Spain, for example, there is a service that you can send Bitcoin through your phone, and you can withdraw euros in 10,000 ATMs all over the country. And the places where you can spend those Bitcoin that you earn or that you bought for investment, for trading, or you both just because you are traveling and you prefer to have some Bitcoin that, rather than exchanging in the offices of remittances exchange, or you can spend those Bitcoin, for example, in 42 uh, huge or very important stores in Madrid. You can spend in 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 London. There are lots of places you can spend. I've been to Amsterdam, and right now the shops that accept Bitcoin have multiplied themselves like um,
That's brilliant because
in
I heard of somebody that went to Germany for a holiday and they went into a restaurant and paid for a meal with Bitcoin. And I mean, when I heard that, it was like, wow, you know, going to a restaurant and using Bitcoin. I mean, I'd heard about people buying stuff online, like online shopping, but to have a meal in a restaurant with Bitcoin, I thought that was quite special when I first heard it.
yeah, I paid yesterday, for example, here in Seville, a sandwich yesterday.
Oh,
So
wow.
so you can pay a sandwich, or you can even buy a Tesla with that.
That's brilliant. A Bitcoin
Yes,
sandwich. Yeah.
yeah, but there are uh, not many places right now to pay with Bitcoin. But even if you have the Bitcoin, you can find someone to exchange that for you into the local currency anywhere where you go. Then there, well, to put you in example, you can find someone to exchange Bitcoin for the local currency, even in Venezuela. So
Wow.
that makes you. If you can do that in Venezuela, you can do it anywhere.
Anyway.
I, I'm traveling to London next month. Um, I hope to find someone in London to exchange Bitcoin for
You
for
will. There'll be plenty of people there, I'm
for
sure.
pounds. Yeah, but I can do that in a local bar or a restaurant. You cannot do that in Venezuela, for example. So the real problem in Europe is not where to get the bitcoins, because you have lots of alternatives. You have exchanges, you have wire transfers, you have bank deposits, all over the Europe. um, I think that the real difficult part of Bitcoin is where to spend it, because there's not many places, but you have lots of options to get your Bitcoins into the local currency or into euros, and you can spend that anywhere. You can even get a debit card that is connected to your Bitcoin
Didn't know
wallet.
that. That's fascinating. I
Uh,
didn't even know that. That's really good.
yes,
Yeah.
Shift Payments, I think is called, but also ANX have its own.
Great.
Chapo, the Bitcoin wallet, have one too. So you can get a debit card and pay with debit anywhere, and they deduct your Bitcoins and
Does
exchange
it
that
does
in
it have a Visa or
seconds.
Mastercard logo on it, or does it just say Bitcoin on the debit card?
No, the debit cards are Mastercard or Visa,
Okay, knew
but
it.
you can. There are some that you can put anything that you want on them. You can print a picture of a Bitcoin logo, or you can even. There are some that are even anonymous, and you can put your name like Satoshi Nakamoto or something like that,
All right.
because those are issued connected to a Bitcoin wallet, not to a bank account, so they don't have to put your real name on them.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah,
There,
be more
there's
anonymous as well.
Yes,
Cool.
there is even a service that is kind of where you can send poop to people houses. You
Right.
can you can pay for a bag of poop, of crap, and you can pay that anonymously through the internet and send crap to your annoying neighbor, and who won't ever even know who sent that. Yeah, that's there is like a service that is selling thousands of dollars in every day or something like that. People really hate their neighbors or something. But it's really good because you
It
you
is
were
good.
you, you weren't allowed before to do that because you need to register and give your credit cards and give your name, your address. Some people say that I don't have any problem on giving all my information to an online service because I don't do anything bad. But the problem is not doing anything good or bad. It's giving your privacy to another person or another service, risking yourself that that service disappear with all your information or it get hacked. Now like 100 hackers in the world knows everything about you and they can fake your identity and everything. So in Bitcoin, you only need a Bitcoin address to send and a Bitcoin wallet to receive, and you just make a payment and they don't even know who you are.
Brilliant. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about what you think is the best software because one of the hurdles for me with Bitcoin was I was expecting there to just be one Bitcoin client and there was so many to choose from and they all had different pros and cons,
Yeah.
and I was kind of it almost put me off because I was like, which one is the best? And just looking at them all, I started doing Google searches, checking reviews of each one, and just wanted to have your opinion on which you think are the best, and I guess ones that you would use maybe, or people that like.
Yes. Bitcoin, the software is open source, so you can look at the code, you can copy it and make your own Bitcoin. Then you'll be rich. No, that's not true. You can try to do that, but many have tried, and most of them have failed. Well, all of them have failed. Well, you the code is open source. Everyone can look at the code. Everyone can look how it works. So you can create services around it that uses the Bitcoin network, the Bitcoin system, the Bitcoin signatures to be allowed to create services that use the Bitcoin software. So there is the official Bitcoin Core wallet that it carries also the Bitcoin daemon or the Bitcoin software that have the copy of the blockchain. But the Bitcoin blockchain is for right now is really big. You don't most of the users don't need to have it with the number of copies of the blockchain right now. It is secure. So there are other services or wallets, even Pors that you can use that don't download all the information that the Bitcoin Core wallet downloads. You can use uh, Multibit, that is a tiny wallet that you can have in your computer. Electrum, that is even easier to use than all the others because it is instant on. You can have it working in a few seconds. It
Brilliant.
have
It's really quick.
this. Yes, you can have it. It gives you 12 words, and you learn those words or write it down by hand, and put it in a safe. And that's the only thing you need to restore all of your wallet, and so you never lose it. Electrum, for example, doesn't have a phone app right now, but it's going to have it. So that's why you have some other options for the mobile phone. For example, you have green address, that is mostly like an Electrum. Um, in some ways, you have 24 words. You have to write it down in paper, and that's everything you need. And you can start accepting Bitcoin and making payments. You can ask people on Facebook to pay you through that. You can have for some other mobile wallets that give you more power than others, because the best you can do is to have the private keys that are the ones that give you the right to spend Bitcoin. You can have it. all you can give some um, rights to the service, like with Coinbase, which is an exchange but also a wallet, and you don't have access to private keys, the private keys with Coinbase,
Okay.
but it's really easy to use. So when you have more usable services, is because you are giving almost all the rights to them. The the more difficult it seems to be to be used, is more private, and you don't give any information to servers or services.
Okay.
So you will need to decide to make a decision that, as in the real life, we don't carry 10,000 euros in the pocket. You have that in the bank account. In Bitcoin, the translation of that is in a paper wallet or a cold storage that is not connected to the internet. Then you usually have 10,000 euros or 100 euros, for example, in your wallet, or and your purse you only have 10 euros or 5 euro to spend. In Bitcoin, you can do the same. You can have the cold wallet for savings. You can have the mobile wallet for 100 euros to go out or everything. But you can decide to have a less secure uh, wallet, and only have 5 euro there for tipping, for example. Chain tip lets you tip people on Twitter. If you like a tweet on Twitter, you can pay them one coffee, and it sends the amount of Bitcoin for a coffee to that person.
All right. I didn't know that you
And
could do that. Like what you were saying, sort of like have a sort of savings and a sort of an expense account, or so, it kind of leads me on to the question about in the same way that with the fiat currencies, obviously the big thing is debt and borrowing and lending. And do you think that there'll ever be a kind of Bitcoin loan system or borrowing Bitcoin from Bitcoin? I don't know if that's a part of their plan, or have you heard of anything like that where they might introduce people borrowing Bitcoins?
there is a service that is called BTC Jam, and it is a Bitcoin lending service. And you can get your you can, if you have Bitcoin, you can lend those Bitcoin that get borrowed, the Bitcoins, and they have to pay a fee for that, or a percentage when they get the money back. You can set like an investment. If
Okay,
you have Bitcoin and you are not using it, you can put that into the BTC Jam service, and someone will borrow that Bitcoins at the price you set. You make some profit when those people get the money back. You start getting a ranking of um, for the good trades that you made, and after that you can ask for a borrowing of more Bitcoins, or you can decide to get the Bitcoins lent in borrowed in euros, or you can decide to get the Bitcoins in Bitcoins, set in Bitcoins. The problem of getting the price the loan in Bitcoins is that the Bitcoin fluctuation, that if the Bitcoin rise, the Bitcoin price rise, you will have it hard to get the money back for the
sure.
lender. But if the money, if the Bitcoin price go down, you can have it easier and even make a profit.
That's
But it's risky. So people usually get the loans in fiat currency, and they
okay.
get the loan paid in fiat currency, but always pay in Bitcoin. So someone in India or even in Venezuela that are not getting a loan from a bank to make a little cookie store or something, they can go to BTC Jam and ask for that money. They make a promise to give the money back in 3 months or something, and if they do that, they can even ask for more, or start they making loans to other people. And this is like a peer-to-peer lending system that usually is made from users to another users, and they get reputation for that.
I need to say that for me anyway, and I don't know how other people find it, but obviously, trying to learn about Bitcoin, it sometimes feels like a minefield. There's so much information, and there's so many different directions that you can go in. And then obviously, just from, as you say, simplest thing as choosing a wallet to learning how to send and receive. And I think
Yes.
another problem for a lot of people is just safety and security. A lot of people will have their doubts. Obviously, it being a digital currency, like obviously the fiat money is sort of backed by the people, and prior to that, we had money that was backed by gold, and it seems like the fiat money kind of got us used to the idea of having something that wasn't backed by a physical piece of gold, for example.
Yeah.
But just wanted to ask you, like, how safe you feel Bitcoin is, and if you could give any security tips for a new person or for everyone in general.
Well, first thing is that fiat money is not backed by anything. Is is backed by the power the government could make you use it.
I always say it is backed by something. It's backed by the stupidity of the people.
Oh well, exactly. Or more than the stupidity is backed by the fear of people. And
Okay,
if people have some fear against the U.S. The government of the United States, the U.S. dollar will have value. If we start not um, if we get convinced that the U.S. is not going to kill us or something, their money will go down in some way, because no one will trust their money at all. That's because that's the one of the things why they keep getting into wars, because that's the way they prove their power to make their money have value. Um, and Bitcoin is backed by people who use it, so we won't invite any country to prove our value. Bitcoin is just for people that wants to use it. And how secure could it be? Well, you can't start using Bitcoin, for example, in the first steps in things like Coinbase, that is made for mainstream, and you can have your Bitcoins stored in vaults that are insured against loss.
great. Didn't know that.
Yes, you can have your Bitcoins controlled by them, so you don't lose the private keys. You can also have, for example, your Bitcoins on Bit Reserve. There is another service. They lock the price of the Bitcoin that you send to a wallet that is for, it's called US dollar wallet, or yuan wallet, pound wallet. So the amount of Bitcoin that you send is automatically at the current price locked. It doesn't fluctuate with the price of Bitcoin. So you can have, for example, 100 euros of Bitcoin, send it to Bit Reserve, and 1 month uh, in the future, you can have 100 euros of Bitcoin again. The amount of Bitcoin might change, but the value of the 100 would be the same. Um, it's really difficult to lose money in that kind of services because it is supposed to be handled, the security is supposed to be handled by the service. Um, but if you feel like you've learned enough and you want to learn how to use Bitcoin, how Bitcoin really is, Electron is a really good, uh, it's like the software for newbies,
Okay.
and it's it has everything an advanced user could need, but it's everything that is all hide for newbie user, and so you can start learning with it just to receive and to send um, and store bitcoins, and after that with the same software you can start learning how to sign a message with a bitcoin address to prove that you are the owner of those bitcoin that you sent, and use it like a receipt for a purchase, for example. You can start using that, for example, an electron to store Bitcoin for a foundation, like I do, or for a group of users. You can start using a shared wallet with your wife, for example. In that shared wallet, you need the signature of the two people to make the transaction.
Okay.
You can share a wallet with four friends, for example, for a journey or something. You only need three signature of the four persons or four people in the group, and you can start doing a lot of things that will get you into more maturity into the using of Bitcoin, and also will teach you how really Bitcoin works and not only use Coinbase or BitReserve that are third-party services that make a profit, or some of them don't even make a profit, but they make a profit for the users. They from the users they give you a service, but they get paid in some way. They charge you fees that Bitcoin are trying to avoid in some way. When you make a transaction, you are not supposed to pay a fee for the conversion of the currencies to another currency because you are paying in Bitcoin and things like that. And I think that the best way is to start with a tip on Twitter, making people withdraw those tips into a wallet and then making a transaction to pay for Wikipedia or a donation to save the children or things like that.
Brilliant. That's really good as well because obviously you can donate to charity through Bitcoin, which is great. One of the things I wanted to mention was I had a previous guest on, and she was called Amanda Billyrock, and she's obviously from the US. And, she sort of mentioned about Bitcoin being very popular amongst the libertarian movement and the anarchist movement. I'm obviously presuming this has a lot to do with, similar to Venezuela, in keeping a distance with the government and obviously not being tracked so easily and having, a way to kind of sidestep or bypass, a bad currency. Because a lot of libertarians are not happy with the Federal Reserve or the US dollar, just as in Venezuela they're not happy with the paper, fuerte. I just wanted to ask you if you think that people that are looking to kind of, try something different and, as I say, keep their distance from the government and not be tracked as much, would you say that Bitcoin is perfect for them in that respect?
Well, Bitcoin itself is not perfect for that. Not there's not software that could be perfect in any way, but it is a tool for to use for all that for to avoid the control in user information, for example, in privacy. You can use Bitcoin and hide yourself entirely. You can you can make a use of Bitcoin that could not leave any trace of who made the payment. The example of that is Satoshi Nakamoto. No one know who he is. He has made a lot of payments on Bitcoin. No one can trace to the real person. So
Wow.
if you want, it could be the privacy tool that could keep you alive in some way, because you can send food to your home from some grocery store that, like Carrefour, or a huge um, grocery store that sell online. You can make people pay for that and send food to your home, and you don't even know. They don't even know who you are.
I love
First,
Carrefour, by the way.
yeah,
I went
that
to, I drove back from Germany to France one time, and I pulled up at the Carrefour in Calais, and I stocked up on a load of cheese and ham, and it's just, and bread as well. But it's just amazing. It's like really, really good. Like the food,
I
so
I
fresh.
I
Like,
I don't remember if Carrefour, but there is one of these big grocery stores. What, how you say that kind of big stores. Well, for food store, there's one of them in France. I don't know if it is Carrefour, that it has Bitcoin payments in their web store, in their online store, but I don't remember the name of that one. It could be Carrefour, I don't know. Well, the thing is that if you want to use Bitcoin, for example, I use Bitcoin for educational purposes. So I use Bitcoin to make people think about their life. I use Bitcoin to make people think about economics. I make people to think about politics. And libertarians look Bitcoin like gold, the electronic gold. Gold is the sound money for libertarians. Uh, I myself think I'm libertarian. I don't know. I don't want to tag myself.
sure.
I've been studying a lot of Bitcoin economics, or the economy that Bitcoin tried to mention, and it happened to be the libertarian ideas, but I wasn't looking for it in some way. It is the way to, if you don't want the country to have the power to print money, if you don't want to give that power to private entity like the Federal Reserve, that is controlled in some way by the government, or worse, it is not. Um, if you do, if you want to give the power of printing your own money, um, Bitcoin is the only way to do it, because we are not going to mine for gold right now. We are not, even if we could, we are not allowed to do that. The government won't let us do that. We will need to pay millions only to be allowed to get a square to start digging for Bitcoin, for gold. But we don't need anyone to tell us that we can or we cannot use Bitcoin, or we can mine Bitcoin for ourselves. We can. So it's the idea of the individual, the making people individuals, and not the collective idea of the people. So it is really the libertarian money. It is more like a test for the real money. If Bitcoin really succeed in some way, I think if Bitcoin could be named to be succeed, is getting um, 1 billion people using Bitcoin. If you got 1 billion people using Facebook, that doesn't give us almost anything good for the rest of the world. for the rest of the or the other 6 billions, because Facebook is not really helping when you give a like when you see someone that is starving. But Bitcoin really can help if you see someone starving in somewhere in the world. There is a tiny foundation that is helping people there, or NGO that is helping people there, and it's not like the big NGOs that you don't know where the money is going. And and that tiny NGO is accepting Bitcoin. That like is really helping, because it is money, and it have value for some people. People can give food or security or things like that for Bitcoin. We try. I For example, I tried to to how you say, to change the idea of the Bolivarian revolution that has been 16 years old now, trying to to wash people's minds through artists that can, they make in the walls, they make painters and things like that in the walls,
Okay.
where in the walls that have images of the revolution. So they clean up the walls of images that are mind washing, and they put things that really matters, things like you have to respect the other peoples and things like that, and you have to to fight against corruptions. You have to 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 treat the other the other people like you would like them to treat you, things like that. Paying them in Bitcoin was one of the things that I tried, but the community is really small in there. But it's a way, it's money, and if you really get 1 billion people to use one currency, that currency is not going anywhere, because it has
Sure.
value, it has users, and
Definitely.
it has value from some
The
people.
numbers. It's got the numbers.
Yeah.
I've heard that. Obviously, I'm not sure if it's changed, but is obviously Bitcoin. It must be banned in other countries. Can you name me some countries that it's banned in, and what your reasons why you think it's banned? I mean, obviously, I would imagine the banks are afraid of Bitcoin, so it would be in their interests to get people, not to use it or have access to it. But I just wondered if there were any countries where it's banned completely and you just cannot get near it.
Well, banks are not really, they don't really
Work.
are not frightened of Bitcoin. They want to make profit of Bitcoin. That's for example, Bank Inter, which is a Spanish bank, but I think that the mother of it, or the mother company is Bank of America. I don't know. Well,
Okay.
they made an investment into a Spanish startup that is about Bitcoin. Um, there is one. There is another bank that is going to make an investment in that company, and that company is making services for Bitcoin, not for banks or things like that. But they get investment from banks because banks want to some way get profit out of Bitcoin, out of the current idea that Bitcoin is going to be the future, and they want to be part of it in some way. The real ones the ones that are banning Bitcoin are the governments, because they cannot make profit out of it. They they cannot control it, and they are losing power when people use it. Because if the government want to keep the money control that is imposed in Venezuela, they need people to use bolivars, and they need people to use dollars and bank accounts. But if people start using Bitcoin and forget about all the others, they 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 won't be able to impose anything They will rule, but no one will obey. So the for example, Ecuador uh, has the Bitcoin banned completely. You cannot use it. You cannot um, buy it or sell it. You cannot accept it as a manner of payment. I think the only reason they did that is because they love to control people's money. That's why they are trying to digitalize the currency they are just creating, because they use US dollars, but they cannot control US dollars. The US dollars are controlled by the US. So they are trying to give people an electronic payment system that is supposed to be US dollars. But once you give the the fiat, the paper money to the bank, and they give you a balance in a form, you don't know if that balance is really US dollars or is just a, a number in a database. So Ecuador, for example, is just trying to get the US dollars out of people's hands and give them a fake money that is just a database. Another country is China. China has one 1 billion population almost.
Sure.
I, I
Very
guess
big.
I guess they don't want people to use Bitcoin because they will lose all the power they have against their people. They I imagine is if Chinese is all of them, even the poor ones, use Bitcoin, they will lose all their control over the country or over the population in some way.
It's amazing that you're saying that, and I know you're right, because obviously the only way that governments can operate is, because they don't really create anything, they're just like parasites. So basically, they need the people to pay the taxes to keep them in operation. And obviously, by using things like Bitcoin, it's more difficult for them, or almost impossible for them
To
to
charge
make
you
money like
taxes.
before. So
Yeah,
I
they
think
cannot charge you
it's,
taxes if you don't want to pay it with Bitcoin.
yeah,
So it's a good way to show to the government that they have to find another way to live and not live out of us in some way. They need to
it's
find a way to live.
I don't know if you've heard this saying, like some people say you can vote with your dollar, or vote with your pound, and in this case I think what you're saying is vote with your Bitcoin, rather than going to the polling station to try to elect somebody that you think is going to improve things, but is no different to the last one. So I think I mean, I'm completely sold by it now, about Bitcoin being a great alternative currency, and for sure I'll definitely be buying some, and maybe even doing a bit of mining.
Yeah, mining just for fun, unless you want to really, unless you want, if you really want to invest into it, because tiny operation mostly pay for themselves but don't make much profit. Unless you make huge investments, then you can get a huge profit out of it. But it's kind of difficult right now with the Bitcoin at 200 US dollar. I think the fluctuation of the Bitcoin is really a good way to filtrate people, because some people get into Bitcoin because the price is 800 US dollar, and they get, whoa, this is money, we are free money, we are going to print money with these devices.
Sure.
But when the price get into 200 US dollar, those devices are not profitable at all, and you have to to create a device that doesn't exist, or cannot even uh, produce, you cannot even produce it to make a profit. So that's the kind of people that get kicked out of the system in some way. It's like a cleaning system for itself. And the difficulty in the Bitcoin mining is a way of kicking people out of the system that are not profitable anymore. In some way, it is not really democratic, like some people might think, but I think it's a good way to get the dust out or something to clean, because the system itself need to be regulated in some way, and as not there is not regulator, the mathematic itself regulates the system.
Okay, great. Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you about Bitcoin, and I for one, am completely sold on it. And I hope our listeners that haven't given it a try would definitely consider giving it a shot. Um, yeah, I would like to thank you, Randy, for coming on our podcast. Just one final question I wanted to quickly ask was, are you familiar with any podcasts that talk particularly about Bitcoin? I'm not sure if you're interested in podcasts or if you've heard any.
I used to follow Let's Talk Bitcoin. That is a podcast. I try to follow, but they make some large shows, so I get kind of bored in some of them. But most of them are really interesting because of the the people they get into the shows. I try to help someone that was trying to make a Spanish podcast because there aren't any.
Wow.
And I think mostly because podcast needs to be weekly or monthly or something. They get bored or busy and don't keep it going. But in English, there are lots of them. Most of them are not that popular, but Let's Talk Bitcoin is one of them that is really. Uh, they have lots of followers, and also the YouTube channels that they gave the news or something, give interviews and things like that. But I don't know most of them.
Yeah, because in the build up to our interview, once we'd arranged it, I quite a lot of my research I done was by just listening to podcasts about Bitcoin,
Hmm.
and also just doing general Google search, and finding websites that and I mean there's plenty of information on the web regarding it. There's really no excuse not to find out about it. I think it's just a case of taking the leap of going ahead and getting yourself a wallet and installing the software, and then maybe making your first transaction or receiving some bitcoins. Yeah, once again, Randy of Bitcoin Venezuela, I'd really like to thank you for coming on the Super Dime Range show. I'd just like to give you a minute just to sort of tell our listeners where they can reach you, maybe a website or some contact details if you'd like to offer them out. That'd be great.
Yeah, the website is bitcoinvenezuela.com. You can find the email address there, or you can tweet me at btcvim, that is btcven, and I'm mostly all over the internet in some way with that tag or name, or Randy Brito, that is at Randy Brito on Twitter.
Brilliant. That is excellent. And just so I would just like to say that if there was any chance in the near future to maybe do a part two of this interview, because I mean, there's so many questions that I've got about Bitcoin, and it would be absolutely brilliant if you would consider coming on again in the future. I'll be absolutely honoured.
That would be great, and I would love to, if you find someone that could make some in different interpretation or make a good discussion, and you can make us like the question that you would like, and I will try to answer anything I can. If not, I can find the people who know the answer.
Brilliant. That sounds like a plan. Okay, so to our listeners, great to be back with Superb Diamond Range. I just give out our contact details. Our website is superbdiamondrange.com, and the Twitter is superbdiamondra. And thank you very much for listening, and hope to bring more podcasts more regular in the next weeks. Thank you for listening, and peace.